Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. I'm Nelson.
Finally, I'm Dalton.
Dalton says that because we are now at minute 7.5 of recording, just because I haven't started the podcast because I just wanted to talk to my friend, and now he's probably hungry or something because he hasn't eaten dinner.
That's right. That's right. The alcohol is more effective this way, though. It's a strategy.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it's very strategic, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, podcast. Anyways, so we we have a board game episode for y'all this week. We're going to talk about Euro games versus Ameritrash games. And so this is a couple of terms that are thrown around fairly often in the industry, and we wanted to kind of consolidate a definition, put that out, and then kind of talk about the pros and the cons of each one, or not really pros and cons, but the differences between those to see what maybe you lean towards, or if, you know, like me, I definitely have an affinity for one of them, and we'll see if you can guess by the end of the podcast. But we're going to do that. We're going to probably talk about some recommendations or just kind of talk through some games that fall under each category. But while we're doing that, we are going to be enjoying a beverage.
Yes.
And
would you like to start out tonight?
Yeah, you know what? I haven't been talking, so yeah, let's do that.
Nobody started listening to you yet.
I mean, we are... 40-ish episodes in, and I think people got tired of listening to me around 2. So
that's right. If they're still listening, they're immune, so you're free to go ahead.
Yeah. There's actually a filter that you can just filter my voice out. It's nice. I'm drinking the Elijah Craig Straight Rye, and so Elijah Craig, we kind of have jokingly, but maybe hopefully sometime it won't be a joke, is the sponsor of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast.
That's
the
right.
the official bourbon of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast.
Yep.
And
they currently give us $0 for that title, and we're hoping, in our next contract negotiation to address that.
Which is coming up within the next couple of time periods.
Yes.
So
time period undefined. Yes.
Yeah. I've reached out to them a couple of times, and they have responded to me asking me, please stop spamming this account. So we're making headway.
Yeah,
we're making headway.
We'll get there. It's a war of attrition. I respect that.
And we'll get there.
Playing
Yeah, I
hard
mean,
to
it's... Yeah. Oh.
I have not had the rye. I've had, obviously, a lot of regular Elijah Craig, but I have not tasted the rye.
Yeah, so the rye, like, I knew it had existed, and then one of our listeners, Amram, kind of, bought it and tried it and said that he liked it. And it's good. It's where it's kind of falling for me is it's not my favorite rye, and it's not Elijah Craig for me. So it does sit right there at the 94 proof, and I think the reason it's not my favorite rye is it only uses a mash of 51% rye, and then the rest is corn. Or no, I'm sorry, the rest is grain instead of corn. And so it's like with my ryes, I like that spicy kind of hit you in the face flavor, and you really don't get a lot of that here.
Yeah,
it's more of a smooth honey flavor, and it's like a poser of a rye. Like it's trying,
oh, man.
It's just not there, and then not being there is kind of hurting it. And so it's not something that I'm going to probably pick up again. So in that case, I'm probably going to give it a 2 cheers. But it's not bad, right?
Yeah.
It's something that if someone offers it to me, I would drink it, but I may like it more if it wasn't Elijah Craig, and it just may be my own personal bias. I'm not quite sure, but that's kind of where I'm sitting at. I'm glad I tried it. I just don't know if I'm going to pick up another bottle.
Yeah, I've always kind of wondered if it was a bit of a marketing grab.
Probably,
I guess. Like it's weird because it's like Heaven Hill has ryes, right? Like they own Pikesville.
Which is good.
Yeah, which Pikesville is good. I like Pikesville. They own Rittenhouse, which is we talked about, I think 2 episodes ago maybe. It's like a staple. It's a bar staple. It's like an extremely good value rye. But the point is, so they already have ryes, right? It's not like Heaven Hill needed to introduce a rye. So it's weird that they took like their like sort of flagship bourbon and like rebranded it as a rye. Like that. It's kind of a weird take, I guess, for me.
Yeah, and I guess like it got me to buy a bottle, and
that's true.
So, but like I feel like a business can't sustain with only buying one bottle per customer, and so it's like I think it's kind of what you were saying. It is a marketing gimmick, especially with the 51% mash, right? It's trying to be both Elijah Craig and a rye, technically a rye, and it just kind of fails to meet either of those criteria, in my opinion. So
yeah, and that I think that's probably a good way to kind of describe it. I say having never tasted it, but I could see how they would take kind of like the rye forward Elijah Craig and just kind of try and tweak the mash and see if they can get to a rye,
right,
and kind of do it that way. But well, I'm sorry I didn't hit so much for you. I think at 2, it's like I do want to try it at some point and just kind of develop my own.
Right.
For it. Maybe if you still have some left in the bottle next time I visit you, I'll grab a little.
I do not.
You do not. You found it already.
Yeah, it is gone.
This is the second episode, then, I think in a row, that you have finished a bottle on the episode.
To be fair, I drink bourbon and I leave a drink for an episode.
Oh, yeah.
So that is my new method of drinking bourbon.
Gotcha.
So
you're allowed a bottle every week or two kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice.
Alrighty, what's on your plate? Hopefully it's a little bit better.
Yeah, I am drinking Eagle Rare tonight, and I was really excited to find this. Eagle Rare is one that I've been wanting to pick up for a while. And I actually, I found it at my local kind of major, it's called Wyatt's. It's just like a big warehouse style liquor store. And I overheard a guy telling, one of the store employees kind of walking someone through a purchase. The guy was kind of he was like, I want to get a whiskey for my son. He's him and his friends really like it. I don't know anything, can you help me out kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And so he was talking him through it, and he ended up settling on Eagle Rare because it's from Buffalo Trace. Okay. And so Eagle Rare would be kind of the step up from just flagship Buffalo Trace. It has a very similar mash bill and everything. It's meant to just be a slightly nicer version, but will taste very familiar if you do like it. But Buffalo Trace also has some all-star brands. It has E.H. Taylor. It has Sazerac Rye. It has Blanton's, right? The one with the little horses on the cork.
Expensive ones.
Yeah, the expensive one. And it has Pappy Van Winkle, right? Which is
the really expensive one.
Yeah, the real, everyone loves Pappy, right? And so all of that comes from Buffalo Trace. They also have W.L. Weller, which is one of the only weeded bourbons that I've ever really liked.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's kind of on par with Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is their rye one, and Weller is their weeded one. They also have George T. Stagg. There's just a lot of good brands coming out of the Buffalo Trace distillery. And so I've been meaning to try more out of it. I've been looking for E.H. Taylor and Eagle Rare specifically. And so I was just really glad to find it.
So did it live up to the hype is the real question.
I think for its price point, it's very good. It's just not flashy. That
was a very political answer.
Yeah, well, it's priced at around 40.
Okay.
And I do enjoy it. It just doesn't have anything that's special maybe or sets it apart. Okay. You taste it and you're that's a really good bourbon. It's okay. Everything that I expect out of a bourbon. It has a nice, really long finish. It doesn't have too much of a nose, which is a little bit disappointing for me. But it has very standard oaky, obviously oaky flavors, and it has sort of apple pie crust type flavors going on.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think I've ever heard
and so I would
a bourbon flavors described as apple pie crust before. But I get it. I know what you're meaning. It's just that's not a descriptor that I've heard before. So that's kind of, I like it. Cool. Okay.
I think I will see apple pie in just reviews relatively frequently for bourbons. For whatever reason, it just feels like apple's that soft fruity flavor. Pie crust gets in grainy. It gets in caramel flavors. It gets in toasted flavors. It's just one word that kind of amalgamizes all of that. If amalgamizes is a word. But it brings all of those tastes together for you. So it's kind of a shortcut word for describing a lot of flavors. But I would give it 3 cheers. I'd be happy to buy it again, if I find it kind of thing. It's a little harder to find it here in Colorado actually than it was in Indiana. It's one of those things where it's I always saw it in liquor stores in Indiana, and I should have just been picking it up more regularly.
So what you're saying is I could find it pretty easily.
More than likely, yeah.
Okay. I may look for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if you like Buffalo Trace, right? This is just the next price point up. This is their kind of one of their major mid tiers. It's Eagle Rare.
Good. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy that you like it. I'm happy that it lived up to the hype a little bit more than the rye did. So that's exciting.
For sure.
Sweet.
For sure.
Awesome. Do you have a little bit more of that I could try when I come visit? Or
right now it's in my it's in my decanter because have we talked about decanting whiskey at all?
No, we have not.
They do this really amazing thing where they make whiskeys look cool and they don't do anything else.
I love that.
Right. It's a great way to be like, yeah, I have my whiskey in a decanter because I'm like really sophisticated.
Can I pour you a drink?
Yes. And they're like, is it fancy? And you're like, it's fancy. Oh, is it fancy?
It's actually just squishy bottle whiskey, but it looks awesome in this decanter.
That's right. I took it out of the squishy bottle and I put it in glass. No, it's better. So I may or may not have some by the time you get here because I try to drink through the stuff in the decanter so that I can, have more things in the decanter so that I can make more things fancy. But actually, in all seriousness, I try to use it for my like semi celebration, just like kind of special occasion type bourbon. I have like my super special one that's not in the decanter. I try to use the decanter for that though, for just I had Booker's in it previously, and I had Barrel, which is the brand, not like the actual description is Barrel bourbon. There's just like no way that they get any sort of like search engine hits on Barrel bourbon, but I had that in there for a long time, and right now I just don't have one, and so I put this in there because it was kind of a fun find, and so I was like, I'll just drink through it a little faster than normal.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's talk about board games. What's been on our table? I know last episode you were prepping for PAX, so this episode you are recently back from PAX,
and I am hungover from PAX, both from like an alcohol consumption as well as just like a emotional consumption. I mean, PAX was incredible. I absolutely adore Gen Con. I will always love Gen Con. I had so much more fun at PAX than I've ever had at Gen Con.
Wow.
And the thing is like, I didn't play an absurd amount of games. Like I played games. I got to demo some new games and everything, but all the joy was really from meeting people. And so I met a lot of great people. I met a lot of people at Gen Con and that was amazing. But I met so many more people at PAX, and I think it's probably just being in the Philadelphia area. A lot of our friends that we've met online are kind of up in the East, and I think Philly is a little bit easier to get to than Indy for people maybe out West. And so I was able to meet so many wonderful people. I was able to meet, 3 of the other board vengers. So we met Professor Meg, I met McKay, the board game critic, and then I met Roberto, the Nick Fury of the board vengers.
Yep.
Sheer boredom. And they're just wonderful people. We got to play games with them. We got to record our first Board Vengers video, which is going to be dropping at the beginning of the year, and so excited about that. It's all about how do we get rid of games is kind of the flag or the first video, and so that was a lot of fun to do, and it was just really cool to meet some of the designers, just a lot of the other media people. It was just, I mean, it was great. But I've already talked a lot about meeting people kind of at Gen Con. So let's talk about some games that kind of went on at PAX.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that was announced at PAX, and I was at the panel where it was announced, and I think this is what we need to lead off with, is how do I want to start this? Okay, so the panel was with Our Families Plays Games, which is a phenomenal YouTube channel. You should go check them out. And Isaac Childress, the designer of Gloomhaven.
Yeah. And
the panel was called Frosthaven and Beyond. So they kind of talked, and they were giving some insights into what Frosthaven is going to look like. They talked about how, we're building up the town, how some of the iconography was changing, and all of that. And that was all really interesting. And then they made the big announcement that they're going to produce minis for Gloomhaven, which is absurd. So all monsters, all summons, all everything will get a mini.
Wow.
Which is a huge undertaking, because if you are familiar with the Gloomhaven universe at all of the monsters from just Gloomhaven barely fit in a gallon-sized bag, and they're cardboard standees.
Yeah.
There are a lot of monsters, and if you amplify that into a miniature format, you're going to be spending hundreds of dollars on this Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
But they are doing it. They're not doing like a one box. They're still trying to figure out how they're going to divvy it up. So maybe it's like all of the Inox characters are in a box, and you can buy the Inox box. They're trying to make it strategic, because there's a lot of cross monsters from Forgotten Circles, Jaws of the Lion, Gloomhaven, Frosthaven. So they don't want to sell a Gloomhaven box, because then you're going to duplicate what you have if you buy Frosthaven.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to find a strategic way to sell it, and I think I really appreciate that. And then they gave out a prototype mini to everyone who attended, and so I got this little berserker guy.
That's awesome.
As a mini. And so, I'm not going to ever buy it because it's an absurd amount of money, but I just thought it was really cool. And so many people have been calling for minis for the Gloomhaven universe for so long that I think that there are a lot of very excited people out there. Yeah. And I have to kind of tell the story of how they set it up. And you can go watch the panel on our Family Plays Games YouTube. But they kind of were asking questions from, like, pulling from Reddit or BGG, and they started asking, like, when are there going to be minis? And Isaac is kind of the person, he, like, does not want minis. He's like, there's so many minis. Like, it doesn't add to the game enough to go through that kind of journey to make the minis. And then they, like, it's like, okay. And then they went to another question, like, where are the minis? He's like, that's the same question. And then they like asked it again, and Isaac was like, you want it? Okay, cut the lights. And then like they started playing the video of like the promo video, and everyone was just like, oh my gosh. And then like they paused the video, and the video title was just titled "Okay Fine" .mp4.
That's awesome.
And I just thought that was hilarious.
That is really funny. So we had a conversation about this exact topic in like our most recent Board Vengers episode, the one that we hosted, where there was a discussion around like, do minis versus just like cardboard standees, do they really add that much, right? Where because they do cost a lot of like there's a lot of money in design and manufacturing, and they can really drive up the cost of a board game that some people really enjoy and others like don't really care all that much about. And so now it's like I want access to this game, but I'm having to pay like a $90 price tag for a game that really shouldn't be $90. It should be like $40 to $60, just based on the content of the game. But the minis drove it up that much, right? And Gloomhaven's already an incredibly expensive game. And so it doesn't make sense for them to try and do mini, especially when cardboard standees are totally functional and they still have their own artwork and stuff. They can still be really nice. It's not like it's cheap.
Right.
But when they decouple that, it makes Gloomhaven approachable, right? At a price point when it's already like actually very, very expensive. It's already like buying 3 or 4 board games. Yeah. In just the one. But it has such a following now, right? It has all of these incredibly invested fans. They're the type of people who are going to just be willing to buy standees just because they look cool and they want to paint them, right? That this is a big hobby for a lot of people. And so I appreciate that they have maintained the like segregation, right? They've maintained the distinction of still trying their best to make the game accessible, while now kind of like catering to the fan base of like, you know what, if this is something you want, we'll make it, and then we'll take your money, I guess.
Yeah. And kudos to those who buy them. I am so looking forward to the pictures because it will look amazing. Yeah. Like these minis they're not 3D printed. I think they're resin. So they're very high quality. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get like crappy quality out of these things. And so people who get them are going to be very happy with them. And so I'm really excited to see pictures, and I'm really excited that they're doing it. So
awesome.
Yeah, so that was just kind of an exciting surprise that kind of I didn't really see coming. Yeah. Because my guess is like I was trying to throw an over-under on the all-in Kickstarter pledge, and I was saying 400. Wow. Because, you got Forgotten Circles, Jaws of the Lion, Gloomhaven, and Frosthaven. Yeah. And
yeah, that's a lot of minis.
That's 400 minis, probably. Mm-hmm. And so,
especially
mini,
depending on how many, copies they do, right? Because especially for the monsters, you can spawn multiple monsters on the map at any one time, and so walk into a room and all of a sudden there's 12 fucking oozes.
I hate those oozes; they suck.
So they have to print like 12 ooze minis, you know?
Yep.
Moose innies.
Moose innies.
Yeah.
Man, that alcohol is hitting you hard, isn't it?
Amen.
Yeah, but that was just a super awesome announcement. We're big fans of Gloomhaven, so I'm excited to bring you that news. Yeah, for sure. So that was exciting. Some of the other things. So I bought one game, one expansion, and so this was very strategic on my part. I flew to Philly, and I didn't check a bag because I knew if I checked a bag, then I would fill the bag.
You would be irresponsible.
I would be very irresponsible. And
Yeah.
instead, I was very fiscally irresponsible at the bars. And so I spent my money on stuff I couldn't take back. And but the one game that I bought, or the expansion that I bought, is CGE just put out a expansion to Lost Ruins of Arnak. And so Lost Ruins of Arnak, we've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's kind of a newer worker placement deck building game from CGE. And it's gotten rave reviews. And I have given it rave reviews. I mean, it's a game that I really enjoy. Every single time I play it, I like it more. Yeah. And this is the kind of expansion that I want in this type of game. And so from our expansion episode, we kind of defined a couple of different types of expansions. And this is one of them that adds content rather than like new mechanics, really. And so it adds new mechanics, very small, as asymmetrical player powers, which is a good expansion in my opinion. Gives kind of people a different path forward, and I like that. Yeah. And then it just adds a little bit more of the same. So it's adding more cards, it's adding more monsters, it's adding more sites to visit. And then what's really cool is in Lost Ruins of Arnak, you have this exploration temple track that you're going up, and then you can flip the board over, and it has a different one. And the expansion comes with 2 more exploration tracks, or temple tracks. Yeah. And so it's just adding variety and not changing really any mechanics outside of kind of the new explorers. And so it was kind of an instant buy for me. And they said that they had limited copies available, and so that always will get me to buy something. and then when I left on Sunday, they probably had 70 more left. So, but yeah. I haven't gotten it to the table yet, so unfortunately, I'm hoping to get it out maybe next week, which I guess is this week that you're listening to it. So, but I want to play that, which will be really cool.
It's a game that lends itself to expansions. Like, it was definitely developed with that potential in mind, but it already has a lot going on, trying to combine worker placement with deck building and trying to figure out, like, okay, how do you get new cards in your deck and how do you trash cards out of your deck, right? Like, there's already a lot of variability in play, right? You can have at least 3 major like strategy types and kind of dominate dominate a specific play. So there's already a lot to explore. And I think like Twilight Imperium has fallen into this trap before, where they've like just added new things to do. And it's like there's already so much to do in this game,
right?
Like you know, it's not going to support that. And Lost Ruins of Arnak is like not as long as you think it's going to be, right? Like,
it's very reasonable. I think our average is like an hour and a half. Yeah.
So it's not like you can have all this time to just like explore like things to do in the game. And so I think that like I'm always going to enjoy asymmetry. I'm always going to enjoy that, specifically in a game that has a lot of choices and it's going to like guide your path a little bit. I think from the way you've described it, it sounds like a very intelligent expansion. What was the price point for it?
I think it was 30.
Okay. Yeah, that's about like the range an expansion should be in my mind, right? In the 20 to 30 range, depending on how much they add.
Yeah, and Arnak is not a cheap game. I think it's 70. Like, I usually think of a game being around 60, but I'm pretty sure Arnak was 70. Which, like, you're paying for a game. Like, it's a very good game. Like, it's great. But also, like, it has amazing components. And I think you're paying for that a little bit. Yeah. Like, all the resources are, like, tactile resources and shaped and all of that. It's not, like, cardboard resources or anything. Yeah. And so I think you're paying for that a little bit. And so the $30 price point felt very reasonable to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, I'm going to say the last thing that I want to talk about from PAX, which, let's be honest, I'm probably gonna bring it up again.
Yeah, probably.
At something's going to remind me about it, and we'll talk about it more. But the last thing that I kind of had in my notes that I wanted to talk about was actually the last game I played at PAX. And so I played this game with Roberto and Kate, so Sheer Boredom and his fiance. And so I played it with them, and they had just bought the game, and it's called Dice Throne. It's a game that I've kind of always heard. It's by Roxley, which is the people who do like Brass Birmingham and like steampunk or steam words. Something Steam Rally Fusion.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, fact check me. I don't care.
I was going to type Steam into Board Game Geek and see what pops up.
Steampunk Rally.
There's one that's just called Steam. There's Age of Steam. You may have heard of it. And then Steampunk Rally is the one you're thinking of.
Steampunk Rally. Yep. Yeah. So all of that is irrelevant information. So, so Dice Throne is Battle Yahtzee. It's a very asymmetrical game where you're sitting across the table from, typically it's a 2-player game. So it can be a 4-player game and you play 2v2, or the way we played it was a 1v1v1, and I think it thrives at a 2v2 or a 1v1. But it's a very asymmetrical game where you have a class and 6 character-specific dice to you. And on your turn, you get to draw a card, you get a combat point, and then you get to roll your dice. And based on what you roll, then exactly like Yahtzee, you can re-roll as many of those as you want again, and then one more time. Whenever you are finished or satisfied with your roll, you have, I think it is, I want to say like 12 things that you can do with your dice, maybe 13 things that you can do with your dice based on what you have rolled. And so like if you roll all 6s, then you get to unlock their ultimate power and do like some crazy effect to some people. Or like if you roll like, you know, a straight, then that does a different effect. And every single effect is different per each class. And so it was awesome. Like I was blown away by how good it was. like I was playing the ranger basically, and so I had this animal companion, and like I'm inflicting like bleed damage. So at the beginning of everyone's turn, they have to roll the dice, and on a 1 through 4, they take 1 damage. And the objective of the game is to bring your opponents down to 0. And then all the cards in your hand upgrade your actions, and so instead of doing like 3 damage whenever you roll 3 ones, you're doing 4 damage, or something like that, right? That was a very simplified explanation of that. Or they have like action cards, so it's like whenever you are rolling defense dice, roll 1 extra or something like that, and it costs a point. And so it was just super asymmetric, and just like it was a lot of fun. And right now, the very tempting thing right now is that they have the Marvel version on Kickstarter.
Oh.
And that is a dangerous combination for Nelson's wallet. So
we know you're a sucker.
I am very much a sucker. Marvel IP, and that. The thing is that because it's so contained, if you've played Villainous, it's kind of like that, where everything is kind of contained to you, but you're still interacting. It's something that would be very easy if you have a character, or if you've bought an expansion or something, that you can easily play with someone over a webcam. And so with like Roberto and Kate, they bought like one of the boxes. And so like if I buy an expansion with 3 or 4 characters or something, then, you know, I can just get on and play a 30-minute game. Or if like you bought 3 or 4 characters or something, I could buy 3 or 4 characters, and then we could get on and just really quickly play a game. Yeah. It's just an option that I'm throwing. Hypothetically, maybe if someone wanted to do that. Yeah. But it was just super unique. It was one of those games that, like, looking at it, I was like, meh. But when I sat down and played it, it was one of the bigger surprises for me of how much I actually enjoy playing the game. Yeah. So
yeah, it's really funny. I was looking it up quickly here, and it's like, this is not a highly rated game on BGG.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's way down there. BGG will tend, first of all, towards more complicated games in general. Like, it will reward complicated games. It may punish things that feel like a reskin, right? Like, people can be critical of that. So it's like, oh, it's Yahtzee, but this other thing. Like, sometimes BGG punishes that. And it also, I think the community there will punish imbalance, right? So if it's a game that's meant to be sort of like where you have this asymmetry that makes it fun and confusing, like, sometimes BGG will like discount that. So it's interesting to hear your perspective on it, and that you enjoyed it so much, because I think if this game had been described to me, I would not have thought that this was a game that you would enjoy.
Yeah. And just from the description, it's not, right? Like, but it was quick enough and laid back enough that it was more fun than it was like, I'm enjoying this game because of the strategic value. Yeah. Like, there are strategic decisions in the game, without a doubt. Right. And, like, the better player will win the game, probably. Right. So
but there's also dice rolling happening.
There's dice rolling happening, but, I mean, you're playing the odds, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But it was just, like, a super easy, relaxing game that we were it facilitated conversation very well.
For sure.
Because we were like, okay, we're rolling, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this, and like, what are your plans for the weekend type thing, right? It was just, it was one of those. The downside is that it's a hefty price. right? I think the core box is $90.
Oh,
and that
wow.
comes with like 8 or 9 characters, and the price is coming of custom dice, custom everything, custom tokens, everything is custom, so it's a very hard game to manufacture.
Right.
And so that's kind of a problem. But the expansions, they sell like side expansions with like smaller characters, or not smaller characters, but less characters, which is more affordable, which is probably what I would look at buying probably, because I don't think it's something my wife would enjoy playing.
Yeah.
And so it'd definitely be something that I would be playing virtually.
That makes sense. Well, it sounds like you had a great weekend.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You got a lot of content in.
Yeah. If anybody, especially you, Dalton,
specifically me,
ever have a chance to get out there, highly recommend it. There's just something about having a ton of gamers come together and just enjoy the thing that they love. Mm-hmm. It's a feeling you don't really get almost anywhere.
Definitely.
And it's special.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, you've had a lot more exciting board game content than I have.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I would. The main thing that's been taking my attention recently is chess. I go in and out of chess a lot, like where I will be playing it on like just my chess.com app or whatever and like get out of it. But the reason I wanted to talk about it is I hit like a milestone. Like I broke 1,700 in like my
snap
ELO. Which was I've like something
That's
I've
awesome.
been working on for like even a couple years, and so I was proud of that. And it's like I feel like I'm getting to the point where it's like I make mistakes only like 1 out of like 4 games now, you know. And
That's
like,
awesome.
Like just like broad where it's like okay, I just dropped a piece, you know. Like like it's getting like less and less frequent, and more of the games are getting to just like positional things and like interesting. Like I dropped a game recently where like a guy made a move. And it was like, I didn't like quite see the advantage, and it was about 4 moves out is where he like converted that to like a winning attack.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I'm getting to the point where I can see most of those, and it's getting out to like that point. So that was really fun. I will like qualify my statement a little bit. I'm playing like daily chess, which is asynchronous chess. So it's not quite like classical, right? Classical would be like 2 hours on the clock, and you get like a certain amount of time every time you make a move.
Pressure.
Or you hit like time. You hit like time points where at the 40th move you get like an extra hour or something like that. Those are like the ways that it's played at like the world championship level. And so I'm not playing on the clock. I'm trying to hold myself to like. If I'm playing daily chess, I'm only going to like sit there and like look at my phone and calculate for like a handful of minutes to try and be representative of what you might be doing in classical chess.
Yeah.
But it's not like timed. So to like combat that, I did start playing more like blitz or rapid chess. And I have found out that I am excessively bad at it. Just very, very, very bad. My ELO in like rapid is like 900 or something.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Like,
there you
it's
go.
like dipping into 8. Like
still higher than my normal ELO.
Well, the only reason for that is because it like started me in that range. Like it started me at like 900 or 1,000 or something. And it's just been like going down as I've been playing. So we'll see where I bottom out at before I start.
Right.
Before I start.
That's
going
great.
up.
That's great.
Yeah, but I just like. I don't know. Like I can see very basic. Like I feel like in that. So like rapid would be like 10 minutes with no extra time.
Okay.
And blitz is like 5 minutes with no extra time, or like 3 minutes with like you get 2 seconds every time you make a move.
Oh, geez.
So it's fast.
Yeah.
And it's like the point where you are making a move just like only on instinct.
Right. Yeah. You've played a lot of chess to be good at blitz chess.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can just like see things, and you just make like quick decisions. And there is a strategy to like, okay, I'm going to stop and calculate this for a little bit and like sit there, and you'll see people do that. They'll pause for like, even as much as like 20 or 30 seconds of their time, and then start making moves really quickly.
Yeah. Like they're calculating multiple moves ahead.
Yeah.
Type thing. Okay.
Yeah. Like they're stopping, and they're like, this is a really important moment in the game. I'm going to stop and like think about it. And I have not gotten that skill yet. I've not figured out like when to like, invest in my time to like sit and think. Cause I just sit there and I'm like, the time's running out. I just make a move, and then it's like, that was bad.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten really good at noticing when I make a bad move a second and a half after I make it. I'm really good at that.
Is that because your opponent starts laughing, or how?
But I've been sitting there, like I'll take a break from work or something and like play a game. That's the nice thing about it, is you can like spit out games, right? You can play
it's
very
super
quickly.
quick. Yeah.
And so like I'll do something, I'll be like, shit.
Oh, bummer.
Like that was a bad move. And then like the guy like takes advantage of it, and you're like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But the good thing is,
I'm glad you caught that too.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad that you saw my mistake, and now you can take advantage of it. The good thing is, I saw a I don't remember if I've talked about this on the podcast or not before, but I saw a like a almost like a TED Talk type thing given by someone who is a professional poker player. And she said, like, the reason I'm good at poker is because I see like every hand as like an opportunity to learn. And she said it's really easy in poker to, like, when you like lose, to say that was just bad luck. And when you win, to say like, I'm a really good poker player.
Yeah.
Right. And in both cases, you lose the opportunity to learn from that experience in that hand. And then she was like, and then like poker, like hands happen super quickly. So like I, play tens of thousands of poker hands in a year or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm good at it. It's just like by learning a little bit every time you get good at it.
Right.
And so I'm trying to like keep that mentality. That's a good thing about it, is like when I do this like asynchronous, just like the daily chess, you have like 3 days to make a move.
Right.
And so like sometimes these games can go on for months, like if people just are like moving really slowly, and I might have like 4 or 5 games going at a time, but it means I'm like finishing a game like 1 per week or something like that. Like that's a hard rate to like learn at, because it's just like there aren't that many opportunities for me to make mistakes, and there aren't that many opportunities for me to learn from them.
And if you've made the mistake and 3 days later someone capitalizes on it, you kind of have already forgotten what mistake you've already made in that game, especially if you have 5 or 6 going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
It's easy to forget where you're sitting in a game.
Yeah. Yeah. And the apps will do a good job of like letting you do like an analysis afterwards. And so they'll show you like this was a good move or this was a bad move. And so you can definitely like do some self-analysis afterward and like learn from it. But again, I'm only maybe doing like 1 of those per week. And now I can do like 12 of those in a day if I want to, just by sitting there and like losing a bunch of games and then being like, oh yeah, I need to get better at like seeing X, right?
That. Yeah.
Seeing when my
That's
pawn
really
is
cool.
pinned and so the other pawn is vulnerable, or seeing,
You're right.
I'm really bad. I found out I'm really bad at seeing backward movement in chess for whatever reason. So like if a bishop is on, if I move my bishop to their end of the board, I'm bad at seeing a good move if the bishop has to move backward. Like for whatever reason, all my pieces have to move forward in my head.
Yeah. Only go.
Right. Get to their end of the board and screw their stuff up. And I'm just like bad at seeing that for whatever. And so like just like little things, it's like, okay, I can take that away and I can learn from it. And then I go and lose
really
the next
cool.
game.
Yeah. And then you learn again, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's the nice thing about rapid losses, is that like exactly what you were just saying, you can learn so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that part has been really interesting. There are definitely, you can easily pick up bad habits, so you have to be really careful. It's easy to just like jump into trades because trades are fast.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know, just make the trade, and then you like work it out, and you're like, oh, I lost like a minor piece there. Like, like I didn't calculate that right. Or just like assuming that if I move quickly, my opponent will also move quickly. Like moving on like impulse and tempo and like trying to make fast moves that sometimes can work, and sometimes you can like get your opponent to not see something, but sometimes you like make a move that you intend to be very forcing because you're like, oh, I'm going to threaten this piece and they're going to have to move it, and then I'll move it over here and then I'll capture that other piece, and like they'll never see it coming. And then you like move the piece and then they like stop and you're like, what are they thinking about? And then you're like, oh crap, there's like a way out of that. They like either move the piece or that piece is more vulnerable than I thought or whatever, and they like capitalize on it. So a lot of things to learn, but again, like it's a cool, exposing you have to be okay to fail. And I think that's actually been the hardest part, is like, it's the pride of like, I broke 1700. I'm such such an amazing chess player.
Yeah.
Which is not, by the way, like I could never go to a competition or anything like 1700 is not that good.
Dalton, 1700 is incredible. So
Magnus Carlsen's like 2800 or something.
Don't compare yourself to the best player in the world. You're never going to be satisfied if you compare yourself to Magnus Carlsen.
I mean, that's true. I was doing a little reading on, because I was like, what does this even mean? Like, how do I conceptualize this? And so people will like rank 5 levels of amateur, and so 1700 is smack dab in the middle of like the second to best one. And so,
well, there you go.
Like
Perfect.
It would be A through E. I would be like in the middle of B, with A being like the best of like the amateur levels. And they say like in general, most people to get into like A are starting to get coaches and basic lessons and doing reading and stuff. And I'm not.
So
quite
are
there.
you going to start getting lessons and everything?
I have put it, honest to God, I put it on my Christmas list before.
That's cool. That's awesome.
I think like once a week chess lessons would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
And maybe I should stop and evaluate my life, that I like strung that string of words together, and set it in a place where people are going to listen to it. But
do what makes you happy, man.
Yeah, very true. And I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. But like also to start at some point in chess, to get to that level, you just have to like know openings. You have to do a bunch of studying, and There's a lot of homework basically that you have to do. You have to study games, you have to study your past games, study end games. Like, oh, this is a drawn end game, this is a winning end game, this is blah blah blah. You have to know all that stuff.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure I want to do that.
Yeah. You can create your own openings. You'll probably lose, but like you could do it.
That's right. That's right. I'm playing white A3. I moved my leftmost pawn forward.
Dude, it could throw some people. I'm just saying, like, at the high level competition, if you make one of those moves, they're like, okay, what is happening?
Right. I think A3 is like it's either A3 or H3. Like, it's one of those side pawns. Moving them one space forward is like the worst move. Out of like the 20, like 2 or whatever it is, like possible 24 possible chess opening moves.
Maybe that's why I'm bad at the game.
No, it is 20. Yeah, maybe that's what I do want to play a game one time where like maybe I'll just do it in this rapid where like, you know, we do it for fun and the points don't matter. Where like just move like your leftmost pawn one forward, right? So A3, and then they do anything, it doesn't matter. And then you go B3, and then they do anything like C3, and just move them all like one space forward, and then like start over. You know? Just move just the pawn advance across the board. It would not work. Like they would start picking them off, but just be ominous.
It'd be fun.
You know?
Yeah. The March of the Pawns.
That's right, March of the Pawns. Dun.
That's incredible.
But yeah, been enjoying that. Been getting a lot more out of chess recently than I kind of thought. And like I said, it does go in waves, but I'm kind of at a peak right now. So if you want to play, hop on the Discord and let me know, and we will definitely play a game. We can play unranked or we can play ranked. Doesn't matter to me. We can also play Chess 960, which is something that I didn't know about until recently. I know I'm talking about too much about chess. It's not a chess podcast.
I don't know what Chess 960 is.
Yeah,
I want to know.
So this is something that Bobby Fischer invented.
Okay.
It's basically like you start the game. It's all the same chess rules, but you start the game with all of your back row pieces like mixed up. So they're just in like a random spot, and it's the same on each side. So it's like mirrored.
Okay.
So it's not like you have a different like, oh, he just got a way better setup or whatever. It's not like that.
His asymmetrical power is better than mine.
Right. Exactly. But like I've been played one recently where like my queen was in like the leftmost corner. It was like queen and like bishop rook. Then like knight king rook or something like that, you know, like it was just a weird like, how do I even, all the standard openings are out the window, like everything is just kind of mixed up. But
yeah, it makes castling's hard.
Right. Yeah. It will still let you do it. It'll like let you switch them, which is kind of
nice.
funny.
Okay, cool.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really exciting.
Yeah,
there are two things that turned me off of chess. One is that I was playing, the 3-day games, and I just kind of got bored / forgot about it.
Yeah.
And two, I am absurdly awful at chess. And, I got tired of losing every single game.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
The next will be Bughouse Chess, which is something that Brady invited me to do. Our friend Brady, who's a listener and on the Discord, I've never heard of it before. Maybe you, the listener, have. But basically, you're playing. It's a team. It's a way to play team chess. So it's like 2-on-2, and you have two chessboards set up next to each other. And they play on their own time, so you don't have to like make one move on one board, one move or whatever. You just play as fast as you want. And anytime you capture a piece on your board, you hand that piece to your partner, and they can place it on. That's
cool.
Board.
Yeah. And your partner's playing the opposite color of you?
That's right, yeah. So like if I'm playing white, I capture a black piece, I hand it to my partner, and he can place that black piece on his board. It's like as his turn or whatever, as their turn.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it's like it's totally wacky, but it's meant to be fun. So
that's really cool.
That's the next step, I think.
Nice. That'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, so let's transition into the main topic of tonight, which is Euro games versus Ameritrash games. And to do that, we had an icebreaker on our last episode, which was what was the most ridiculous board game theme that you could think of. And so we put it out in the Instagram world, and we got a couple of responses. I think it's kind of one of these questions that may be kind of hard to think about and answer immediately. So there wasn't an absurd amount of responses, but let's read some of our favorites. Where did I put those? I'm not cutting this.
Listeners,
it'll be fine.
Deal with it.
Yeah. Anyways, archive. Okay, so what's the most ridiculous board theme or board game theme? And like the picture on the background is Bosk, just because I think that's hilarious, and it's the game that inspired the question. So we've got BG Junkie said the most ridiculous board game theme that he could think of is Exploding Kittens, which that's fair. That's very fair. That should be probably at the top of a lot of people's list.
Right.
Bo 4815 said The Bloody Inn, is the craziest one that he can think of. And are you familiar with the Bloody End?
No, that's a new one for me.
Okay, so it's a game that was published, I think it was about 5-6 years ago or so, and basically you take on a role of like an innkeeper that like murders and steals people that stay there. So it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a family friendly game. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah, a real turn from our, first recommendations of exploding kittens.
right, yeah, which was, lighthearted and fun.
Exactly.
The Mad Board Gamer said Silk. So Silk is another one that I wasn't familiar with Silk. So this is a 2018 release.
Okay.
So it's a lighter game, but you're playing like the role of a silkworm, and you're trying to like move your silkworms around the map to the optimal space to harvest silk. And so,
how exciting!
Yeah, and I like to think that either someone slapped a theme onto it, like I don't know, or they're like, we are making a board game out of this.
Yeah.
Like there's no in between option there. There's
They're
only
like, what are you
that.
going to do in the game? You're like, gather silk.
And then my wife responded with Pandemic because it's super real.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is very dark. I'm glad that we ended that on a very lighthearted note.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
I think we brought that up too. It's just like
yeah,
like it used to be a gateway game into like co-op specifically, right?
Now it's one of those iffy themes.
Yeah, now it's really hard to pull out.
But I think this is a great icebreaker question that leads us into our discussion. And so Euro versus Ameritrash games. Dalton, do you want to start us off by describing either one of those?
Sure.
Your favorite?
I think if I can give like a brief summary of both.
Okay,
it
yeah,
would
let's do
be that Euro games are boring and Ameritrash games are interesting.
No, I'm turning off the Zoom call.
Right, turn off the Zoom call. No, that actually makes me sound like I really prefer really thematic heavy games, which I don't. But like just to give if you had to boil it down to one sentence, I would say that's what it would be. In theme, in general, Euro games are dry and boring, and Ameritrash games are built only for the theme, right? It's kind of it's the difference in your design basis. Are you building for the theme, or are you building for the mechanics and putting a theme on it?
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I theme leans into it heavily for me. I have a slightly different version, and I could not find a like set in stone definition for either of these. And so that's why I think it makes such an interesting topic, is because I think it applies a little bit differently to everyone. The way that I view it is that Euro games are typically a little bit more solitaire, and most likely there are victory points involved. So you're kind of building an engine. So like an engine builder falls into this theme, but it's kind of a less head-to-head player interaction, whereas Ameritrash, or as I've seen it referred to as AmeriThrash games, which I vastly prefer.
Yeah, it'd be slightly less elitist and judgy.
Yeah, Ameritrash sounds so judgmental, but
right.
So Ameritrash,
think of like McDonald's or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but Ameritrash games, I think of more combat-heavy games. So games where you win when you directly are in conflict with an opponent.
Yeah.
Is kind of my broad definition. Is Euro games are typically more solitary and you're working towards a goal, and Ameritrash games are head-to-head, I won because you lost.
Yeah. Type
game. So, but just like you were saying, theme plays heavily into Ameritrash games.
Yeah, because I'm struggling with that a little bit, because like I feel like I would call Dead of Winter an Ameritrash game, right? But
I would too.
It would not fit your definition,
right? And my definition comes with caveats.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would. Yeah. I'm just.
Sorry, I feel like I kind of put you on the spot here a little bit.
No.
Called you out.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Please do. And so, like, I kind of think I'm trying to think of like a unique or a good themed Euro right now, and so like I would think of like Underwater Cities or Terraforming Mars. Like those are Euro games to me.
Okay.
And I think those are unique and interesting themes, right? Like Terraforming Mars is 100% built around the theme, but you're working towards kind of this overarching like points, right? There are victory points in the game, and it's not like a head-to-head conflict. I'm moving into your space.
Yeah.
Like there is a little bit of that. There's always going to be player interaction. That's a very vast statement. Most often in any good Euro game, there will be player interaction.
Yeah.
But it's typically not a cutthroat, I'm going after you type of interaction.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And part of, like Nelson said, part of what we're struggling with is these are not like real terms. Like they're terms that like board game communities use all the time.
And we're codifying them tonight. So after tonight, we will have a
we're gonna be the ones who finally
universal
do it.
definition.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I struggled. I remember coming into the hobby and really struggling with it because people would say it, and I was like, "What does that mean?"
Right.
And it's almost like people like you can look at a game, and once you like play it, you're like, "Oh, I know that that's a Euro, and I know that that's like Ameritrash or whatever."
Yeah.
But they don't like these are not like categories that you can go look up on BGG, right? Like it's not like a tag that gets applied to the game. Like they're kind of generalizations, and I think they're really stemming like what they're calling on is kind of the difference in mindset of design between like games that were coming out like early in the Renaissance from Europe, and so you were getting your Catans, your Puerto Ricos, right? Your like things like that they had like little wooden components that were very simple, and they had very little player interaction, and they were victory point driven, and it was kind of this like feeling like I want to use the word theme again, but almost like genre, like but without like having a play style genre, but just like a genre of feeling, how the board game was constructed and what it felt like to play it, like fell into this really big umbrella that started being described as Euro, and nobody like actually had a real definition for it, and it wasn't actually like a meaningful, sometimes even definition.
They came out of Germany.
Right. If it came out of Germany, it was a Euro game. You know?
Yeah. Give me cubes or give me death.
Right, exactly. It has wooden cubes, it's a Euro.
If it has death, it's an Ameritrash game.
Right,
so unless your farmers are starving, in which case it's a Euro game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
But
yes.
I usually have found that people lean one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like I said you would have to guess at the end of the episode, but I don't think it's any surprise to anyone when I say that I lean on the Euro side of games.
Right.
Right. I prefer my engine builders. I prefer my indirect interactions with other players. And that's just where I live. That's where my mind works. That's where I thrive.
Yeah.
I think that, Dalton, you enjoy those games, but you're probably more of a AmeriThrash player, if I had to guess. Like
I would say I would struggle with like our difference in definitions maybe a little bit. Like,
okay. Yeah.
You know, like what I would often prefer to play Terraforming Mars over Dead of Winter.
Yeah.
You know, and I think often I feel like a Euro game has a chance to be a better game.
Okay.
From the onset. And again, I think it's coming from this difference in like marketing and difference in strategy, right? Where in America, where it took longer for like this sort of renaissance to hit, and even when it did, it wasn't as big of a part of the market, right? Like the board games for a long time were being marketed to sell in Target, right? Like they wanted it to be on the shelf at Target, and they wanted like some kid to walk by it and say, "Mommy, get this for me."
Right.
Yeah. And it had to be like flashy. It had to be catchy. You had to be able to look at it and be like, this looks like a fun game to play based on like the cover, right? And like maybe what it says on the back if you got that far, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like I think not every, but for the most part, a Euro would fail that test, right? It would be bought because you have had it described to you or researched the mechanics or like found it at a convention and test played it, and you're like, oh, this is the type of game that I like. You know?
Yeah, mechanics over theme type thing.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on the statement that if it's a crappy theme, it's a Euro. Right? Because or it's a very poorly selling Ameritrash game.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think it's kind of, they're not mutually exclusive. Like theme is not mutually exclusive to Ameritrash in my opinion.
Yeah.
But a dry theme is pretty much mutually exclusive with a Euro.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like a Concordia, a farming, trading spices in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Those themes feel very pasted on, which I feel is a characteristic of a Euro game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think of like just other like pasted on themes. I think like Codenames comes to mind, which is really funny.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
You know, it's like this is a word game. Like this did not have to have like a spy theme, you know?
Yeah. And then Crypto did the exact same theme as a word game.
So. Right, exactly. Well, that worked, you know. But again, it's got to sell in Target, and like you know, you got to have a cool like code names, you know. Like, okay, because people aren't going to buy like Scrabble anymore, you know, unless it's like Game of Thrones Scrabble or something.
Ooh, I would buy Game of Thrones Scrabble.
What would you even do? You just like
You could only spell curse words,
that's all it's allowed.
which is pretty great because that's what my vocabulary is basically limited to. So.
Right, exactly. So I think you're right. I think like I do tend to lean into like interactive games.
Yeah, that's a
and
good way to put it. Yeah,
I think like I'm struggling to think of a game that I would call like a Euro that has like heavy levels of interaction. You know,
right.
I'm blank. Even like Catan
Brass.
is like one of the more maybe Brass.
Yeah, but even still, like Brass is pretty heavily interactive as a Euro, right? And then you compare it to a Risk or you compare it to TI, and it's just like, well, it's not interactive at all.
Right.
Right. I'm using your stuff rather than I'm going to come in and kill all of you. Right.
For sure. And I think also there's this, not everything is a Euro or an Ameritrash. Like they're not all like, it's not like all board games fall cleanly into
It's a
these
spectrum.
Categories, right?
Yeah.
I think, it's a spectrum, and then there probably are things that just like don't fit on it at all. Like I think I'm bringing this up because of Twilight Imperium, where I think there are like really intense mechanics, and I think there's a really intense theme going on. And I don't think that like, either one was like like Twilight Imperium would not have been meant to sell in Target. It was not. It's like it's way too much for that.
Yeah,
you know? It's priced well above where you would sell in just like a standard, I don't know, supermarket. You know, it's not going to be on that shelf. So
they're going to carry that inventory for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You know, Eclipse, Gloomhaven. Like I don't know that I would like strictly call either of those games like Ameritrash games, because I don't know that they're. Like Gloomhaven is not specifically like interaction focused, right? It's not specifically like theme over mechanics focused. Like it has this really good like balance of both. And I think part of what I feel is that either categorization implies like a failing in one or more area. Right.
Okay.
I don't know if that's like totally true across the board. Like, you know, there might be games like Terraforming Mars that someone could say like, this is a Euro, and where it does have successes in both areas. But I feel like if somebody is going to say like, oh, it's a Euro, or like, oh, it's an Ameritrash, like for the most part, they're saying that as like a negative connotation.
Yeah. And I think it needs to be viewed as, if someone says that should kind of give you a baseline on what you should expect from the game, rather than I'm not going to like that. Because like I love Euro games. That's where I live. I also enjoy a lot of Amerithrash games, right? Like I would play TI. Like I enjoy TI, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Robinson
that was a bad
Crusoe.
example. Robinson Crusoe, right? So there are these games. Dead of Winter.
Game. Yeah,
Dead of Winter. I love Dead of Winter.
Yeah.
Right? I don't not like it just because it's an Ameritrash game, right? So that it's more of a categorization that should kind of give you an idea of what you should expect from the game. Is it going to be kind of theme and interaction heavy, or is it going to be, am I going to need to push these cubes around and grind some gears for 2 hours?
Right. I need to break out my calculator and
that's cheating.
Do I need an Excel spreadsheet for the game? If so, it might be a Euro.
You might. It's like Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a Euro if.
Right. You might be a Euro.
So the other thing that I was kind of thinking about is that if I had to build a definition, and I don't think we're going to be able to, write a Webster's dictionary definition of these tonight, but I think that Ameritrash leans into the story, which is very thematic. It's very synonymous with thematic, but I kind of think of it as a little bit different in the sense that, like, whenever I am talking about past experiences with games, almost every single time I do that, it's about an Ameritrash game.
Yeah.
Right? I never can really tell you about an epic time that I had playing Great Western Trail.
Right.
Right?
That's a good point.
I love playing Great Western Trail, but it's like I can never point to like this thing where it's like, but like Game of Thrones when Harlan swooped in and killed, the Targaryen dragon. And it's like, and it's like, so there's that where I think that Amerithrash games tend to have a higher experience rating for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, even if you just think about games that are intending to tell a story, they would fall pretty cleanly for the most part into that category. Like, you think of Betrayal at the House on the Hill or Time Stories, or, again, even just like Gloomhaven to some extent.
Right.
And a lot of the cooperative games that we've talked about, Eldritch Horror, right? Like these are games that you are playing specifically to have a story, have an experience, be able to walk away from a game night and tell people about these like crazy things that happened. You're right. The most you can do in a standard Euro is like describe a weird combination that you came up with, right? Like a weird engine that you built,
right.
and you're like, oh, it was really cool, and it like, kind of worked.
This card comboed with that, which comboed with that, which
right.
did this, and everyone is left at that point.
Right. Not interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that we don't have as much fun, right? We have a ton of fun playing these Euro games. But it's just like not exactly what stays with us all the time.
It definitely works a different part of the brain.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And good, bad, indifferent, whatever. That is just what it is. And so, like, I think that the board game community, at least on Instagram, leans a little bit more towards the Euro side. Either that or I just don't follow the people who like AmeriTrash.
I think it's fair to say, just like overall, like I struggle to look at the top 100 or top 50 in Board Game Geek, and feel like it's not in some way kind of dominated by a lot of Euro games.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Not to say that there aren't Ameritrash games on there. There definitely are, but it just kind of, I have this feeling that that's kind of the majority.
Okay, I want to play a quick game with you.
Okay,
I'm going to, we'll see how well this goes, and that will determine how long the game goes. Okay. I'm going to name a game, and I want you to tell me immediately if you think it's a Euro or an Ameritrash game.
Okay. But by whose definition?
Just after this discussion, I don't know if if it's been swayed, but I have a couple of them that kind of are in the middle of that spectrum.
Okay. Oh,
so
okay.
Spirit Island. Spirit Island.
Trash.
Okay.
I can't say trash. Sorry, Ameritrash. It's definitely not a trash game.
Yeah. Robinson Crusoe.
Think Ameritrash.
Okay. Gaia Project.
Euro.
Okay. War of the Ring.
Ameritrash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
one's
Mage
a story-focused one. What's that?
Yeah. Mage Knight.
Am I just stuck on Ameritrash games? That one's a hard one. I think I'm going to say Ameritrash because that was my first.
I also think that like the list that I built is on my spectrum, but if you're just going off theme, a lot of these, like I built a list that is like cool themed Euro games or Ameritrash.
Yeah.
So
that might be why I'm stuck a little bit. Yeah.
Scythe.
Euro.
Okay.
No, I think I think the reason I said Euro is because when I think of Scythe, the first thing that comes to mind is like components, and I think of like I think of it's not cubes, but there's like the resources and stuff.
Yeah. Food Chain Magnate.
That's a Euro, I think. That one feels
Taverns
Euro.
of Tiefenthal.
Euro, I guess. These are hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, I can't be wrong because there's not a legally binding definition anywhere. So
right,
I'm just gonna say I'm right no matter what.
And the last one is Through the Ages.
Through the Ages. I feel like that's an Ameritrash game.
Really? Okay.
I don't know. That one's hard. The only reason I say that is because I think it was done for the theme. Like it was built specifically.
Yeah, it definitely was built for the theme.
Yeah, and that's where I'm trying to draw the line. Like what was
the theme?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it's not even just the theme, but it's like what was the focus in production? Like what was the goal? Was it to put out a game that did a specific thing, or was it to put out a game that was looked a certain way or whatever? Or
gotcha.
Had a certain IP or whatever. I think that's the best that I've come out of this conversation is the difference in methodologies between the markets, right? The Euro market versus the American market.
So the definition for a Euro versus Ameritrash is kind of the intent of the designer on, are they building around theme or are they building around mechanics?
Yes. Yeah, I think theme is maybe a little bit narrow, but in general, yeah.
Yeah, story or narrative.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. I think it's interesting. I think you're wrong, but like it's a good point.
I think it's hard to say like every engine builder is automatically a Euro, and every deck builder is automatically a Euro, and every dudes on a map game is automatically an Ameritrash game. Like I think that's I don't totally love that line in the sand, I guess.
And that's fair. That's fair. Like one of them that has really blurred their lines recently, which I have not played. I don't think you have played. Is called Dwellings of Evervale.
Don't know it.
I just butchered that. But so it's a dudes on a map type combat system, but it's kind of a worker placement, and each one of your units has a different ability. But it's like you're basically like attacking the worker placement spot as far as I understand it.
Gotcha.
And so, which is, I think it's a really interesting blend and people love it. I mean, incredible components.
Yeah.
Awesome theme. So
Yeah.
it's one of those that kind of blurs that line and maybe like smack dab right there in the middle of that spectrum. But
Yeah. Like what about like Lords of Waterdeep?
to me, that's a Euro.
And I feel like that's fair, but I do think it was kind of like constructed with a theme in mind, you know?
Yeah. You could also put trading in the Mediterranean as a theme on that. Right? It doesn't need to be D&D themed.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it definitely doesn't need to be D&D themed, but they were like, I think, looking for that, right? Yeah, it came from Wizards.
That's what sold it.
Yeah,
That's what sold
That's
it.
what sold
right?
it. But it's like it plays like a Euro. It totally feels like a Euro.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a worker placement type thing.
Right.
And so I don't know. And that's why I think the topic's so interesting is because so many people have vast definitions of what these types of games are, and everyone I talk to has a different way of describing it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to see how everyone describes it. And it's like we almost have like the same ish ideas. Like we're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what's kind of great about the terms is that when someone says a Euro, you kind of have an idea of what it's going to play, how it's going to play.
For sure. Were there any like areas where I majorly differed from you?
On those games?
Yeah, on those games that we listed. I know Scythe, just because you stopped
Scythe.
to like comment on it.
Yeah, Scythe. I think Through the Ages is a Euro game.
Okay.
Let me pull back my list. Pull up my list again. I think Through the Ages is a Euro game.
That's an interesting take because that is a 4X game.
Yes.
Right. So I would think of that as more of like you had talked about like player interaction and combat and stuff, and like that sort of starts to fall cleanly into that. But it had like I think you think of it as a Euro because it has feelings of engine building and it has counting victory points.
Yeah, and I feel like the majority of at least my victory points typically come from an engine builder. I have built this much stone, therefore I score X amount of victory points.
Right.
Mage Knight, I think that kind of falls right there in the middle. I would probably lean a little bit more towards the Ameritrash, kind of like what you said.
Yeah.
Gaia Project, I think we both said Euro on that one.
Yeah.
Spirit Island, I would say Euro.
Yeah, I think the reason Gaia Project is a Euro is because if you asked what is Terra Mystica,
right,
that's a Euro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Just because you made it space themed doesn't mean that it's all of a sudden a different, like it's all of a sudden Ameritrash.
Yeah, that's fair. Spirit Island, I think is a Euro, and I think you said Ameritrash.
I think for me, I feel like I tend to call cooperative games Ameritrash. And I don't know if that's totally fair, but I think it's sort of like how you tend to call engine builders Euro games. I feel like I'm tending to call cooperative because I think they're trying to tell a story, and and so it's sort of falling in there for me.
And I'm changing my answer. I think Spirit Island is Ameritrash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is direct conflict. It is...
Right. It's not with the players, but there's a bad guy.
Right,
conflict
yeah.
with them.
And it's very narrative driven. It's very theme heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It is engine buildy.
Right.
Okay, yeah, no, I just thought that would be kind of fun to just run through and kind of see.
Yeah.
The other thing that I meant to do, but I didn't have enough time, is we have a giant spreadsheet that has all the games that we've played with our mech ratings on it. And I wanted to add a column to that to say like Ameritrash or Euro, and like maybe like Nelson Ameritrash, Nelson Euro, and Dalton.
Right.
To see how we rank those, and then sort based on that and see which has the higher average value.
Oh, that would be interesting because this same spreadsheet has all of our mech ratings in it, and so you can see kind of how we rate it in different categories and how that sums up to overall.
And how if like the mechanics, my guess is that the mechanics probably are going to be a higher average rating, but the experience, the experience for you is probably going to be a higher for the Ameritrash.
Mm-hmm. I think those two will tend to correlate. Like it's not like a strict correlation, but they will like tend to trend together. Yeah. That the two would be would kind of bring each category up. And I think the other like just again we've already said it, but the other big takeaway is that like it's not like every board game falls cleanly into one of these two categories. I think that's an important thing to understand.
Yeah.
Like we talked about like this list of games that Nelson rattled off, and the fun thing about talking about these games specifically is that they are not cleanly in either category, right? That's like why they got picked to talk about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you almost need like a third on there that's like could not classify it.
Yeah. DNF.
Right.
And the one rating that I think is highly correlated would probably be components. right? There will be some outliers with the Euros, but I think Ameritrash really has a strong correlation with the components rating.
Yeah, Euro would put out a game with just, if they could boil it down to just colors of cards and basic shapes, they will do that.
Yeah. Give me cubes to push around.
Right.
I want to move those cubes to that side of the board. That's
Right.
my object, and I can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think like Catan is a quintessential Euro game, right? Like I don't think anybody would fight that Catan is a Euro game.
No.
And
it
basically
was
does
literally
that.
made in Germany. So.
Exactly. It was made in Germany, like in the time when Euro games were becoming a thing. It had the wooden components. It has very like 5 cards that basically are just colored. Like they have a little symbol on them, but that you could play the game with just the colors.
Right. What about the $250 3D Catan version that just came out? Is that in America?
The one that sells in America?
So random sidebar. If you haven't seen that, go look at it. It looks incredible.
Yeah, they are gorgeous.
But it's also $250, and that's a lot of money. So
just to look at pretty things. But people spend that much on art, so
yeah,
they spend a lot more than that on art actually. But
okay, that's fair. I'll go buy it.
I'm so glad I could convince you.
Wow, twist my arm, Dalton. Jeez. No. Catan is one of those. We're just rambling at this point, but Catan is one of those games that, like, I liked it the first time I played it, then I didn't like it as like I got heavier into board games, and now I'm back to like I like that game. Like it's relaxing. Yeah. Right. It's not going to be a cutthroat game that I expect to win, but it's a fun activity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like people can take Catan really seriously, like there's like Catan competitions, which I still just like fundamentally disagree with that. Like you can play that in a competitive sense.
The same players win. So there is some strategy.
Right. And I know that's true. Like statistically I'm just wrong. Like there are people who are the best at Catan or whatever. So like
right.
I understand that this is a position that I'm just incorrect in, but still I die on the hill.
That's fair.
Yeah. But you're right. If you're like sitting and having a drink and just playing Catan, it's like like you said, how's your weekend? Like all that sort of stuff can happen over the table. If you're in first place, you're not going to win. And you just got to accept stuff like that, and it's fun regardless. So
totally,
yeah, we love to hate on Catan. It's a Eurotrash game. It's
exactly. Yeah, there's a spectrum, and that is the word for what comes in the middle of that spectrum is a Eurotrash game.
Right. But it's oh,
I love that.
Yeah. It's a game that ignores themes so excessively. No, not quite. But
yeah. Eurotrash game.
You heard it.
Alrighty. I love it. I love it. Since it's such a nebulous kind of definition, I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say and what you think is a Euro game and what you think is a Ameritrash game. Because I'm sure we left out elements that are defining points of each one, but I kind of like I'm not going to say I did a lot of research, right? But I feel like, my 10 years of board gaming is my lot of research on this topic.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is one that I didn't do a ton of like preparation on just because it's like I've done it before and I know if I Google the phrase Euro versus Ameritrash, I'm going to just get garbage. Like
yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I do want to hear what you all think. Are you kind of in Dalton's camp where it's built around where Euro games are built around mechanics and Ameritrash games are built around the theme? Or are you kind of in where it's kind of an intent thing? Or are you kind of in my camp where the correct camp where it's
where Euro games are good and Ameritrash games are bad?
Exactly. where Euro games kind of are the mechanics that build to victory points and Ameritrash games are the cutthroat, go after direct head-to-head player interaction type games. And again, it's a spectrum, but I want to hear kind of what you all think and what if you have different opinions, if there's something that is there the Webster's Dictionary version of this out there on BGG somewhere? If so, then it's not in the first page of Google.
And by that, he means it didn't show up in our extensive research.
Yeah, exactly. Usually I go 3 pages in. This time I just did 1.
Yeah, just
so
one. Yeah, fair.
But yeah, so let us know. It'll be interesting. Let us know on the Discord or let us know on Instagram. Those are probably the best places that you can talk to us about it. I'll post a story. I'll post a story, and
more
have
promises
people
on the cast.
Yeah, exactly. But so, and then in our next fireside episode, if they align with my ideas, I'll read off some of the answers. So
yeah, for sure.
We'll
hold him to it, guys. Hold him to it. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we got to kind of squeeze this in here before the end of the year. If we don't see you on the Discord, dear listener, happy 2021, happy 2022. Happy holidays.
It's been a really fun episode. It's been a really fun year doing this with you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you, especially Dalton. So
thanks, man.
Yeah.
Cheers to another year.
Cheers to another year. Alrighty.
Cheers.
Cheers.